नहीं है। उसके बाद जो उस पे हमारा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो 3 वेबिनार करवा चुका है। आई थिंक पाकिस्तान में ऐसा कोई अभी तक इन्होंने फोकस नहीं किया, बट वो भी हमारे लिए एक ऑनर की बात है। हमने और उस पे हमने रिकमेंडेशन दी मुख्तलिफ एम्बेसीज को। हमने या फॉरेन ऑफिस को मैंने ये सेंड की हुई, हायर अथॉरिटी जो पाकिस्तान में, उनको ये मैंने रिपोर्ट सेंड की हुई है कि हमारे स्कॉलर्स क्या सोचते हैं, हमारी जो अकेडमियन है, हमारे जो लोग हैं, क्या सोचते हैं इसके हवाले से। तो सर ये चीज चली, जैसे थिंक टैंक बेसिकली रन कर रहा है। बेसिकली हम तो अभी तक वो ऑनलाइन ही काम कर रहे हैं। इंशाल्लाह वी विल लॉन्च वेरी सून ऑफिस इन इनोग्रेशन करेंगे इन इस्लामाबाद। तो इंशाल्लाह वी विल इनवाइट यू। थैंक यू वेरी मच सर। अबाउट यू शाह
Thank
साहब।
you. Thank you, Shafkat, for a generous introduction. Thank you.
Okay, so we start this session. Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. To begin this session with the blessings of Almighty Allah, we will start with the recitation of Holy Quran, Surah Nas, Qul a'udhu birabbin nas, malikin nas, ilahin nas, min sharril waswasil khannas, allazi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas, min al jannati wan nas. Say, I seek refuge in the Lord of mankind, the sovereign of mankind, the God of mankind, from the evil of retreating whisperer who whispers in the breasts of mankind, from among jinn and among mankind. Assalamu alaikum. A very warm welcome to all the respected participants and honorable speaker. I'm Syed Firaz Alisha, your host for today's webinar. On behalf of International Institute for Regional and International Studies, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for joining this session today. The International Institute for Regional and International Studies is a Pakistan-based youth-led platform dedicated to dialogue, research, and, as our president said, policy engagement on global and regional issues. Through its initiatives, IIRIS seeks to promote critical thinking, empower young scholars, and contribute to informed debate on pressing international challenges and international issues. Today's topic, climate change and Pakistan's national security challenges, is of immense significance. Pakistan is one of the countries most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, facing recurring floods, extreme weather events, food insecurity, and water scarcity as well. Beyond environmental risks, if we talk about climate change, also possess serious national security challenges as well, from internal displacement to resource conflicts, and from economic instability to strategic vulnerabilities. Understanding these dynamics is critical for shaping sustainable security and policy responses. We are honored to welcome Mr. Abdul Waris Hamid as today's distinguished guest speaker. He is a research associate at the Center for Security Strategy and Policy Research and a lecturer at the School of Integrated Social Sciences, University of Lahore. He is the 2024 Shelton U. Kodikara Research Fellow at the Regional Center for Strategic Studies, Colombo, Sri Lanka, where his research report titled South Asian Climate Diplomacy and Collective Risk Mitigation Strategies was published. Mr. Hamid has also contributed to BASIC's Nuclear Responsibilities Program. He has written for Pakistan, Politico, and South Asian Voices, focusing on issues of security, strategy, and climate diplomacy. His expertise and contributions make him an excellent voice to guide today's discussion. Before moving forward, I would like to extend a special acknowledgement to our very dedicated intern, Ms. Sayyeda Fatma Shuja from Lahore College for Women University, who has taken the lead in organizing this webinar on behalf of our organization. Her efforts and commitments are deeply appreciated. Without further delay, I would now invite our esteemed guest, Mr. Abdul Waris Hamid Saab, to share his insights. Sir, you have the floor for the next 30 minutes, and then we will start with our question and answer sessions.
Right.
Over to
Thank
you,
you
sir.
so much, Faraz, for the introduction, and a very generous one, I must say. And I'm grateful to International Institute for Regional and International Studies IIRIS, for inviting me, especially Fatma Shuja, who I have had the honor of working with in the last summers while she was at the Center for Security Strategy and Policy Research as an intern. Well, I'm grateful that you invited me, and thank you, Shafkat, for leading this initiative. I hope that youth's voice, young people's voice, it eventually becomes part of the mainstream ideas and discourses which are being discussed. So thank you very much. I'll start. Let me share my screen. Can you allow me to share my screen? I have a presentation, so maybe we can work that out. Thank you. So, can you all see my screen?
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Sorry for interrupting, sir. Sir, before starting, sir, I just wanna ask something from Shafkat, sir, if he is present here.
Khatija was saying something. Now she's mute. I'm not sure what's happening, but shall I continue?
Yes, sir, sure, please.
Okay, thank you. So today's topic, as discussed with Fatma initially, and then I got a chance to think about it. I have been working on similar topics one way or the other. This very topic has been part of my research. So climate change and Pakistan's national security challenges is one critical area which needs a lot of discussion and a lot of introspection as well into what's happening, what we are doing, and what is in our control, what is not in our control, and how it's impacting Pakistan's national security. So let me assert in the very beginning that the whole idea that I'm going to, the greater idea I'm going to present during the course of this presentation can be summed up in one line, and that is climate change is a threat to national security. It's a threat to Pakistan's national security, and this is going to be the thesis around which I'll be talking about throughout the course of this presentation. To formally understand or to actually understand how climate change is impacting national security in Pakistan, I think it's better that we start with the very basics, and that is, what is climate change? Climate change, it's basically that Earth's weather patterns, which usually stay same for a long time, are starting to shift in unusual ways. It is to say that the weather patterns, Earth's weather pattern, they change, but they change over a long period of time. But what we refer to as climate change is that this speed of changing weather patterns, it has increased, and it has become a lot more faster than expected. And the main reason is that planet is getting warmer, which is to say global warming is happening. Some I'm sorry, but I think there's a lot of disruption in between, so I'm not sure what's happening.
Sir, unmute yourself. Please carry on, sir.
Right. Thank you, Shafkat. So, as I was saying, the planet is getting warmer, which is to say global warming is happening, which means that the heat coming from the sun is being trapped, and a lot of it is being trapped, which is raising the temperature of the Earth. Some places might get hotter, other might have more or less snow, and extreme weather like storms or droughts can become more common. And this is pretty much what climate change is. The planet is getting warmer, which is speeding up the weather pattern change. And, there are places which are getting colder. There are places which are receiving more rainfall than expected or usual. And there are places which are receiving a lot less rainfall than usual. Same goes for snow. Same goes for, droughts have increased, storms have increased. So this is pretty much what we refer to when we say climate change. Now, there's a whole science behind climate change. It's a whole field of study. So I'm not going into the details, but how do we know that global temperature, the climate change is happening and Earth's temperature is rising? We know it from simple scientific measurements. We match it with the pre-industrial era, which is before industrialization started, and then we measure it till this time. The data I'm showing right now, it goes down up to 2021, and you can see that Earth's surface temperature as of 2021, it was 1.2 degrees more than the pre-industrial time temperature. Now, as of 2025, this has already gone much up, and in parts of the world, including South Asia, it has crossed 1.5 degree centigrade barrier, which was set by the Paris Agreement. This image is pretty much, tries to sum up what is happening. It's a poly crisis. Climate change is what is a classic example of poly crisis. So rising Earth temperature is fueling several different phenomena at the same time in different parts of the world. For example, the snow cap is melting, which is leading to floodings. But then when the winters come, droughts started taking place because there's no water available. Then, sea level is rising because of glacial melting. Oceans are getting warmer. Coral reefs are being damaged. Storms are getting stronger simply because of the temperature difference. And the animal and birds, they're migrating in different patterns than the usual ones. Rains and the pattern of rains and snow have changed. For example, this year Pakistan's monsoon started in the mid of June, where it used to start in August, and August and September used to be the monsoon months. It went back up to July, and now it's mid-June, and we have received at least 2.5 months of complete monsoon this year. So climate change is real, and there's a lot of scientific evidence for it, so not debating it. But one important thing that is to be remembered at all times while dealing with climate change and working on issues of climate change is that climate change is anthropogenic, which is to say it's completely man-made. Whatever is happening in terms of climate change has only one and only one variable, and that is the human activity. It is primarily due to the human activity that a lot of carbon dioxide is being produced, which is trapping a lot of heat into the Earth's surface, and the Earth is getting warmer, and climate change is taking place. Now, coming back to my primary argument from where I started, climate change is a threat to national security. Now we have understood what climate change is, and I hope I have made some sense for all of you to get the basics of climate change right. Now let's see what national security entails and how I connect both climate change and national security. So in a very simple words, security is absence of threat and absence of fear of threat to the values. And to say that values of a nation, core values of a nation, and this is both subjective and objective security. So security is absence of threat, but what is a threat? That is, Richard Ullman's definition, and this has to be one of the comprehensive ones ever to define what threat means. So he defines threat as an action or a sequence of events that threatens drastically and over relatively a brief span of time to degrade the quality of life for the inhabitants of a state or threatens significantly to narrow the range of policy choices available to the government of a state or to private non-government entities. Now, if we see this definition of threat to national security, an action or sequence of events that threatens drastically and over a relatively brief span of time to degrade the quality of life for the inhabitants of a state. So let's take this as a parameter, that quality of life of inhabitants of a state is one parameter, and if it's something is degrading it drastically and over a relatively brief span of time, it means it is a threat to national security. And then there's another modern definition of security, which is what we call the post-Cold War or the modern security. That security has been redefined as management of change in orderly way and harmonization of conflicting interests, views, and perspectives between different groups within the nation and among the nations. So security now refers to managing change. Change is taking place every single, in every single way, and you have to manage that change in a very harmonized way to include everyone and to accommodate conflicting interests. For example, countries like Pakistan and other developing countries like Pakistan, they have this dilemma of they are one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change, yet they want economic development, and for economic development they need to utilize more fuel, which is going to emit more carbon dioxide and which is going to increase their vulnerability as well. So this is one conflicting view or perspective in which these countries are placed, and Pakistan included. So if we go on for more economic activity, it is going to generate a lot more carbon footprint, which will eventually add to our vulnerability and global vulnerability, collective vulnerability, but Pakistan's vulnerability as well. So, we have to balance these conflicting interests. And then this is primarily what security means in the modern world. Coming to Pakistan's national climate change challenges, so I have listed 4 of them. And to say 4 of them, it's primarily because I think these 4 have if we talk about these 4, we'll cover everything that is happening in Pakistan right now. For example, let's start with floods. So floods have 2 major sources. One is what we call riverine floods, where rivers overflow, and that is due to glacial melting. A lot of glaciers melt. A lot of water comes into the rivers overflow, and it causes flooding on the banks and on the surrounding areas. Then there is another type of flooding, which is what we call torrential flooding, which is primarily when a smaller area receives a lot of rainfall in a very short period of time, and the systems placed in those areas are not able to let the water flow out with as much speed as it's coming in. It floods, and that's what we call torrential flood, and it happens both in the rural areas and urban areas. In urban areas, we call it urban flooding, which is strictly due to poor urban management and urban planning. In the rural areas, it is also due to poor planning, but then there are a lot of other factors as well. For example, 2022 floods were more torrential floods than riverine floods, and this year's flood in 2025 we have received a lot of riverine flood as well, along with some torrential floods, but a lot of riverine floods as well. I think someone has raised their hand. Do we take the questions now? I think we can take the questions at the end. So
yes, sir, we will take the questions at the end.
Thank you. So flooding, if we see what is happening in terms of floods in Pakistan, so there's a factor of glacial melting. There's a factor of rainfalls, heavy rainfalls, unprecedented rainfalls at times, but even if not unprecedented, then primarily due to poorly designed systems, you see a lot of floods happening in the urban areas. For example, Karachi. it's a prime example of what's happening in terms of urban flooding in Pakistan. Coming to heat waves, so heat waves also, it's a span of time when the temperatures get high and higher than the normal. Uh, for example, if the normal is, the a normal summer day is to be recorded around 40, 41, 39. So temperatures can touch up to 45, and if they stay there for 5 or 10 days, this is what we call a heat wave, a longer span of heat, higher temperatures when they persist over a longer period of days. So that's heat waves, and it has directly to do with rising average temperature. And also, I'll again refer it to also poor urban management as well, because when the cities are being designed, there's a phenomenon which is called the heat sink, when the airflow is constrained due to construction of high rises, and the area that lies between those high rises, it becomes a heat sink, so where heat gets trapped and the temperature rises abnormally. So heat waves also have that poor urban management factor as well, but obviously it's a climate change phenomena. Droughts have fairly become a normal in South Asia, in different parts of the world as well, but South Asia primarily. This year, I remember during February there was a lot of news around a lot of reports coming where Met departments were giving warnings of droughts, which is to say the dry spell, the period where there's no or very less rainfall. So droughts have become fairly common in South Asian countries, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. All of them are facing these issues. And air pollution. Now, air pollution, uh, it's a debatable issue. People say it's not a climate change issue; it's purely environmental issue. I slightly have a different view. It has a lot to do with climate change as well, because one thing that very much like climate change, it's anthropogenic, and other than that, it's the rising average temperatures, they impact the flow of air, the wind patterns, and that does impact uh, where the polluted air gets saturated. For example, November. So if you remember last November in Lahore and Punjab, so there was an anti-cyclone situation where there was no air, and primarily no airflow has something to do with climate change, because of temperatures were supposed to drop, they did not drop to a certain extent, and the air did not flow as it was supposed to flow. So and a lot of natural phenomena that also add up to this problem. So air pollution is also one of the challenges which is impacting Pakistan's national security. And how does it impact it? And all these factors, how do they impact Pakistan's national security? I'll come to it in the next slide. Yeah, I'm not sure who did this, but this is pretty annoying. So I think there are 4 avenues that I would like to put light on while talking about climate change, and one of them is it's economic, it's societal, it's law and order situation, and health, public health. And we can talk about all these areas, and there are a lot of other areas, but I think these 4 will cover most of what is going to happen. So let me show you a few examples of how this is all these are impacting. So there's this year's news. There was a study led by some British and Pakistani scientists, which concluded that human actions led to 15% heavier rains this year, which is to say that which is to say that human action is actually adding a lot to the vulnerability that already exists. But see, this news by Asian Development Bank, this estimate, which is to say that at an average, annually, Pakistan loses $2 billion to climate disasters, and that's an average, right? There are years like that of 2022. So in 2022, Pakistan, the floods in Pakistan, it affected 33 million people. Almost 8 million people were displaced. And the cumulative loss was $30 billion. But at an average, every year, Pakistan is losing $2 billion to climate disasters, which is a huge number for a country like Pakistan. So the finance minister of Pakistan, the current finance minister of Pakistan, is on record of saying that climate change has already hit livelihood of millions in Pakistan. Farmers are the first and the foremost affectees of climate change. The yield is being lost. The floods are taking away, this year's floods and the floods of the previous years. They badly damage the agriculture produce, and whatever is being produced apart from the floods is, the yield is not there because of the rise in average temperature. And there are a lot of studies to back this argument. There are also a few studies which hint towards a relation between air pollution and loss in crop yield. So there are scientific studies that hint towards these areas. So farmers, but yet again, a lot of other livelihoods are being impacted. For example, heat waves, when summers are there, scorching afternoons, markets are nearly empty. That people can't really go out and shop, which hinders the economic activity, which impacts the economic activity in the country. So yes, climate change has already hit livelihoods of millions in Pakistan. Last year's Breathe Pakistan conference by Dawn Media, the global director of climate change from the World Bank, said that Pakistan is at a risk of losing 6.5% to 9% of its GDP annually starting in 2050 because of climate change. So climate change poses a serious risk to Pakistan's economy. And I'm sure because the audience is learned enough, have the IR background, political science background, that economic security and economic development or the economic strength itself has a serious and a very strong connection with national security. So Pakistan's economic security is at risk because of climate change, and there's a lot of evidence for that. It is already being impacted, but the risks of the future are much more they're worse. Last year, due to air pollution and other climate disruptions, 97 school days were lost in Pakistan, which seriously impacts the already weak education system in Pakistan in most part of the country. There are a lot of statistics out there. There are more than 2 million students who are still out of the school going age, and they are not in schools, and yet those who are in schools are again one of the victims of climate change. And school days, 97 school days were lost in 2023-2024 due to climate disruption in Pakistan. At many levels, this is a challenge for both economy and human security for Pakistan. And also there's this recent study that came out in which children in South and Southeast Asia are at a very high risk of diarrhea because of rising temperatures and declining rainfalls, the droughts and the dry spells. So countries like Pakistan and countries like Pakistan are definitely at risk. Now coming to one very important aspect of it, the law and order part that I mentioned earlier. So there was this study carried out in India where the economic shocks to the rural income, it added or intensified the Naxalite violence in India. So the insurgency, Naxalite insurgency that India was facing was fueled during the drought days, or whenever there was, less rainfall, droughts were going on there, or the agriculture produce was being damaged, or there were other shocks to the rural income. The Naxalite insurgency rose to say that people started, supporting the Naxalite insurgency. Now, this case study of India has a lot of lessons to offer. And for a country like Pakistan, which is currently in between, some really serious challenges of extremism and terrorism, especially in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, I think climate change does add to the vulnerability and to this challenge. And there are a lot of reasons for it. Not only does that, it opens, when people are, the floods take away people's livelihood and their houses, and they are left alone. So it impacts the social contract, and it gives a gap. It gives an avenue for non-state actors to exploit it and to gain, the gain sympathies from the local people. But simply from a very simple fact that Pakistan's agencies, law enforcement agencies, and military, Pakistan's police, and other paramilitary forces, all of them get engaged in the relief efforts. And we have seen 2 helicopter crashes this year. Primarily, both of them were in the relief, were busy in the relief efforts. So yes, Pakistan's law enforcement agencies, military and paramilitary forces, they do get distracted when extreme weather events like floods and others come, and their efforts.
Excuse me, sir. Sorry for interrupt you, sir. ये मीटिंग जो है ना एंड हो जाएगी विद इन 1 मिनट. सो सेम मीटिंग जो हम ज्वाइन करेंगे सेम लिंक से, सर. थैंक यू.